is money.
It's nothing.
Ballin', ballin'.
Alakwa.
Premium or nothing.
When them or nothing.
Now you know.
Now you know.
Now you know.
Now you know.
Hey. Forget what they know, yeah, yeah. Ayagaya.
Iba. Apa.
Ayagaya.
Come on. Iba.
Ayagaya.
Iba. Apa.
Ayagaya.
Iba.
Ayagaya.
Iba.
Ayagaya.
Apa.
Ayagaya.
Iba.
Ayagaya.
Come on.
Welcome back, everyone, to Couch Chronicles, Therapist After Dark. Hello, ladies.
Hello.
All right. So we're going to start with a little bit of a mindful check-in today. Given that we're talking about the radical act of slowing down, I want to check in with you all and just start with a conversation around why self-care might be important to you and what that has looked like for you this week.
Well, I could go with the week before. My self-care was vacationing, actually. I didn't notice that I needed a vacation or needed to pause. So for me, even having that moment traveling without my laptop, like I told you guys, was like the first for me.
First time ever.
First time ever. And it was definitely an adjustment in the beginning, but also I realized how it forced me to be present and really connected with my body and really... I slept, and I woke up when I wanted to, and my body just really feeling relaxed, and my skin was so clear, and I ate well. I did. So for me, what this reminded me of is the fact that I do need to take more breaks, and I do need to rest more, and really, especially the sleep part. I think I need to take that into more account. So yeah.
I also came off of a vacation, and I also think that I started or restarted my therapy journey recently, and that has been really, I think, integral in my self-care, because as I have kind of continued to progress through chapters of my life and continue to get older, there are wounds that are getting tugged at that haven't really, I would say, been strum in since I was maybe in my teens. And so as I kind of have been exposed to different things, different people, different lessons, or even been given new information, I think that there has been this kind of undercurrent rhythm that has been showing up for me, and being able to make space for that and not immediately judge it or question why it's coming back now, if I've already gotten past it, if I have already resolved those issues, or that's not even a person that I interact with on a daily still. Why is it still so deeply rooted? And also, how come it's so easily coming out now more than it ever was before? So that's definitely something that I have been kind of embracing more in my self-care journey.
And then the idea that therapy is part of self-care.
Yes. Yes. What about you, Fran?
I would definitely say this week I am proud of myself, because I kind of, speaking to what Stephanie spoke about, I feel the fear of almost not doing enough. So I'm proud of myself for taking the time. I took a personal day this week.
Yes.
I was intentional about my time. I went to the spa. I had a really good just time for myself, and that just helped me recharge and got me through the rest of the week.
Good. I think similar to the rest of us, I think I'm hearing a common theme around a pause being something that we all very much needed. And same for me. I think that I took a vacation a couple of weeks ago that was a nice reset. And since coming back over the past few weeks, I've really been intentional about what my schedule looks like, ending at a specific time, making sure that I have my walks in the evening when the weather permits, or some way for me to just decompress after a long day. I think I've also been more intentional about checking in with my people. Y'all know me. I can get ghosts when I'm struggling a little bit.
I think you do that well. You do that well.
You do that well. I have to say.
I was trying to
want to do it better, honestly.
I was trying to, keep up. So yeah, I think overall self-care has been good for me this week, and something that I always want to be intentional about, so that I can make sure that I have enough in the tank.
Good deal. Good deal. Good deal. Well, this was good.
Yes.
I definitely appreciate that check-in. I think it's also the importance of also checking in with yourself, checking in with your friends and your family.
Yes.
So we have a guest on the couch.
We do.
So Tyler, do you want to take the liberty of introducing our beautiful guest?
Okay, so as you all can see, we have a guest on the couch
Yes,
today.
Yay.
So this is a good friend of mine and all around awesome human being. Yes. So I'll read a little bit of her bio, but I also want, Tiffany to tell us a little bit about herself. So, a cloud and security architect by profession, a self-proclaimed creative techie by passion, an aspiring writer and self-care connoisseur. As a Black woman with over a decade in tech industry, she's dedicated to breaking the mold and championing the power of self-preservation. Her life's work combined with initiatives, strategic thinking, and a deep passion for personal wellness. She believes wholeheartedly in nurturing the mind, body, and spirit. Everyone give a warm welcome to Miss Tiffany Gray.
Thank you guys.
Welcome.
Welcome to the couch, dude.
So happy to be on the couch. I love you guys. I'm definitely a fan of the podcast. I listen to it religiously.
I love
I
that.
just listened to the new episode this morning, actually.
Nice. I appreciate that.
Here.
We're happy to have you and want to know a
Yes.
little bit more about yourself. And just tell us more about what has led you on your own
Journey.
self-care wellness journey with the type of work that you do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. So the work that I do is very cumbersome. It definitely takes a lot of my time, my day-to-day time. So I think if anything, I was forced into it because that was the only way that I could enjoy my creative endeavors was to actually make the time for myself and just for, to do the creative things, which I mentioned the spa earlier. Like that's something that I do to recharge. Reading a book, just literally sitting down in silence is a way that I can recharge. I think for me, like I said, it was kind of forced upon me because I see around me also family, friends that weren't taking the time for themselves.
Yes.
So I'm like, we're an example whether we want to be or not. So my example was I'm going to take this time for myself and do what I need to do so that I can show up and be more present.
Right.
And I've been
need
doing
it.
that for a long time now.
Now, Tiff, go a little bit more when you say it was forced on you to kind of like. Can you kind of like
Almost
go
because I saw an example of it and I'm like, I don't want that.
Yeah.
So what did that look like? I
It
think
looked
like the
like-
viewers want to know
Yeah.
when we're forced to pause and when we're forced to be like, look at you, specifically Black women, right? Or women of color, like what was that light bulb for you?
I think it was just people being tired, even literally looking like what you've been through.
Yes.
The saying that people say often.
Yeah.
Just taking the time to fully do the things for yourself that make you feel better. And the person in particular that I'm thinking about, I won't say a name or anything, but they just weren't taking that time and you could see it in the way they showed up. They were angry and aggressive. And I think also taking that time just allows you to be a more peaceful, calming presence to not only myself, but to the people around me.
And then how did you know this like lack of taking care of yourself? How were you showing up in spaces, or how were you interacting or not wanting to interact with people?
For sure.
Or even waking up every morning going into a demanding job because
I think I was
you
just
have
rigid,
a demanding job.
very rigid,
Yeah.
not wanting don't touch me, don't look at me, don't ask me any questions.
There we go.
That was really kind of how I lived in at this point in my life, and then I woke up one morning, it's like I want to make a different choice.
There you go.
And the different choice was just loving on myself in a way that helped me progress, and kind of also because I wanted to do more things. So opening up that mental space in my mind where it wasn't all rigid and consumed with all these other things. I opened up that space. Yeah.
Okay.
Can I also say that one of the things that you were describing was burnout, right?
Yeah.
People being angry,
Yes.
people having a short temper,
Yeah.
the rigidity. That is, I would say, the product of not filling your cup back up,
Absolutely.
right? Not
Absolutely.
taking the time to even fill your cup with the things that are fulfilling, rejuvenating, and energizing.
For sure.
People forget that self-care, yes, is definitely getting them nails done, definitely getting that hair kept up
Going to the
nice,
spa,
and going to the spa, but it's also around being able to fill my days with things that
Fill me up.
uplift me,
Yes,
right? You know,
exactly.
like
Yes,
really
absolutely.
push me forward. The fuel that keeps the engine within us going.
Yeah, because one of the important things that I think people don't notice, that they don't notice when burnout happened or when it happened. So for Tiffany, she was like, I started to become rigid. I started to like, I don't want to interact with people. I don't want nobody to touch me. And I think those are things that can also be like, oh, what's wrong with her?
Exactly,
Like
yes.
she's standoffish. She has an attitude when really nobody stopped to
I'm
look
in my
at her.
own
Like
body,
she's
doing my
tired.
own
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, but then I'm
Yeah.
looking like, okay, maybe she's tired.
Yeah.
Maybe she
Mind you,
doesn't
Jay,
have
you're
it.
being kind of nice. What they would call her is
Yeah.
you're a bitch.
That part.
That's what they would say.
That part.
No, because
That
that's
part.
what they
Yeah.
will call black women.
No, for sure.
People
No.
call her
The
if
angry
you
black
are
woman
rigid, if you
stereotype.
are mean,
She's
if you are
standoffish,
short, if
exactly.
you don't want, you
She's
don't
not
lean
nice.
into those
Yes.
things.
She's
They
not-
call
yeah.
you a bitch instead
Absolutely.
of asking, well, why am I showing up
Exactly.
this way?
Thank you.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Right. Okay, so what does rest mean to you all physically, mentally, and emotionally?
Physical rest means sleeping, head to pillow.
We don't have no problem with that, girl.
You know,
We
good.
don't
Yeah,
have
she's
no
a queen.
problem.
She gonna take some
I am
naps.
the connoisseur,
Yeah.
the statue, the staple
Yeah.
of sitting that ass down and going to sleep. So that would be one thing.
I think elaborating on that too around like the intentionality of your sleep, right? So not just sleeping, because sleep can be used for a magnitude of things. Sometimes that can be used as an avoidance, and perhaps will not make you feel as restful as you are thinking if you're avoiding some sort of interactions.
So quality sleep.
Right, quality sleep, meaning like I'm intentional about the amount of time that I sleep. I prepare for sleep in some ways. I'm like gearing my body up. A lot of times when you think about like bedtime for kids, there's like a whole routine. There's like
and
some
it's
sort
so
of
funny.
calming
Yeah.
interaction. We
Yeah.
might read, we might take a bath, like all the things that can kind of help to power your body down. And when you become an adult, it's like I fell asleep on the couch. I was watching TV. I was doom scrolling till I slapped myself in the face with my phone. Like
so
there's-
the routine is gone. Is what I mean. Like we're
intention,
not
yes.
really intentional, but that is so. I never connected that
Yes.
into like as children we have routine,
Yes.
and it's nurtured for us to go to bed on time and do that.
Some
but then we
people.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You get
for some
older, we
people.
forget about it.
You
But
get
it is
older,
best
and you forget
practice.
about it, and. You know, I'll be quite transparent, and I don't want no judgment.
No
Not from you,
judgment zone.
Tiff, but I know these two.
You mean
they're off the
for
chain.
me?
Okay, they're off the chain. So I think even at 40 plus, I'm still trying to figure out what resting is for me.
Yes.
And I think do you see what I'm saying?
I
Do
was
you see what I'm
yes
saying?
in agreement. Like
See what I'm saying? Anyway.
No, but I will say that Jay, you have come a long way.
Yeah,
Like-
and I think too, I can relate to Tiffany around the forced part. I think the first head for me was like being diagnosed with high blood pressure. I was very proud of the fact that I was maintaining good health, and to me that was like that wake up call. And even then, I was still like the dabbling. It wasn't modeled for me. I literally grew up with two hardworking
Yes,
parents.
absolutely,
So it wasn't like, oh, mom was home taking care of the... No, they all work. So I don't know how to stop.
Doesn't your mom still work?
She still works. And
Correct.
she's retired. She's
Correct.
legally retired. But she still has to keep moving.
Yeah.
So, and I married someone who's equally the same way as me as well. So it doesn't help. But I think I'm learning to just, and that's why it was my decision to not take my laptop on vacation. I was
I'm
shocked
really
when
proud
that
of
came
you
to me.
for
I think
that.
this was Jesus telling me, like, you need to pause. So I think for me, I'm slowly learning that. And I'm also resting, to your point. I'm noticing that I'm enjoying quiet.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm enjoying I could lay in the bed and not,
Do a thing.
Silence.
I'm not even on the phone. I'm
Nothing.
just there.
Yeah.
Or I'm picking up a book and I'm just like, yeah.
But before that,
can
though, it was
appreciate
hard
that.
for you to
Yeah, no,
sit
for
in
sure.
stillness. And I think a lot
For
of
sure.
people have the literally
needed to
copy
move.
and paste experience. I have a
Yeah.
client, and we've
High-functioning
talked
people.
a lot about like rest being something that she feels guilty about,
For sure.
like
I used to feel
doing,
guilty
right?
for
Like
the
it's
longest time
so
for
I'm gonna
resting.
spend my weekend
Yeah.
doing nothing. I have
Yeah.
dishes, I have laundry, I
Yeah.
have things that are carrying over from the week
Yeah.
that I haven't been able to complete. So it
Exactly.
doesn't feel like I've earned rest. And that to me is toxic as fuck. What
It
do you like
is.
the fact that in our mind that we have to earn rest is why a lot of us are burnt out,
I used to
and a
tell-
lot of us
yeah.
continue to add more and more things that qualify us being able to rest, right? I can't pick my head up. I couldn't actually get up. I couldn't, my eyes were physically unable to open. That's what allowed me to rest.
I remember being a teenager, being a young adult, being an adult, telling, I was like, Mommy, you need to sleep. Mommy, you need to stop. Her response to me all the time, and I brought this up to her like a couple years, I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
I don't have time for that.
So then in my mentality, unconsciously, I started picking up that I don't have time for that.
She's not the only one. Isn't there a saying, you rest when you're dead? Yeah. But mind you, not resting will actually lead to death. You will get there a lot faster.
It will take you to the grave.
Absolutely.
But yeah.
What about that mental and emotional aspect of rest? What does that look like for you all?
I think emotionally, it's me honoring my feelings, like honoring the fact, even though I was feeling rigid, I still honored that and found a different way to move forward. Journaling, something that we talk about often. Journaling is definitely another way. I like to write it down, see it, touch it, feel it, to fully like release it. Yeah. And I think also doing things like this, like sitting down, having a conversation about it with my family, friends, and kind of just talking through it. Maybe also with a therapist, not only just with my friends and family. But yeah, just taking the time to honor myself and then giving myself the time to move forward from that.
Yes, I think that's such a good point, right? Like that it does take that space to acknowledge and sit with, which is also something that a lot of us in this generation are learning for the first time.
Yes.
I think that Jay even brought up some things, and Stephanie brought up some concepts that are really like our displays of intergenerational trauma.
Yes.
Like the fact that a lot of stuff is heavily weighed on what you can produce, or if you're not doing, if you're not working.
Right.
That's from slavery. Like
Yeah,
that is very much a mentality that we have taken on as like, this is the way that we can survive. This is the way that we can do our best. We can be successful.
Prove our worth.
I want to free our people from that.
Yeah.
I want it to free us because the thing.
Deserve rest simply because we
But don't
exist.
you think it's happening slowly in this
It
season, though?
is.
Yeah.
But sometimes I think that our society can live on extremes, right?
For sure.
Like it can be very much, it's either
It's a
we're
trend.
heavily into this or
Yeah.
we're heavily into that. When there's so much gray area in the middle, it is appropriate for us to be productive or work towards something. But I think that shifting that mindset to work towards something that is of value to you, that can fulfill your life versus working to work or working to fulfill someone else's value.
Yes.
But I wonder, to the point of like, I notice, and I don't know if you notice this either, to having conversation with family and friends about resting and self-care, open up the door of vulnerability for them to actually have to identify some of these real traumas and cultural norms. So I think part of my emotional care that I notice is actually being honest with the people that are close to me that I haven't been honest with about where I am.
And that can be so hard.
It is. Because I think people view me as a strong person and I'm embracing all my weaknesses. When I turned 40, I embraced all of it.
Yeah.
Because I feel like 40 give me the not give a fuck type of age. Where I'm like, girl, you've been through it. You actually don't have to give a fuck.
Yeah,
and
you don't
I think
have
it's
to.
different for people to hear me and see me in that light of like, I don't have it.
But also you had to hear and see yourself in that way.
Yeah.
For other people to
see
also witness you.
Yeah.
Because like you said, they witness you in your strength because that's what's most comfortable in us portraying out for the world to see.
Yeah.
We're not comfortable showing our weaker, fragile, like pieces because those are usually met with questions. Why did you allow yourself to get that way? What are you doing to get out of that? So constantly in this like space of analyzing, assessing, and now implementing, which again reiterates this burnout that's going to happen.
Yeah.
I also think that part of emotional health is the ability to purge, because what it is that you were saying was that like the journaling, the talking to your therapist, the talking with your friends, like also the stilling is your ability to release and to purge and to let go of the stuff that you just naturally absorb and take on throughout the day. Living is hard just because like taking foot to pavement and then step in front of the next step and then continuing to be in motion takes energy. Takes what's it called neurotransmitters and cells are working with each other and all these things. Like all those things are working. And so we need to be able to let go in the same way that we absorb so much.
Well,
Yeah.
Steph, let me talk to you about that. How do you purge? What does purging look like for
Ooh,
you?
let's talk about it for someone who's literally been stuffed up, constipated emotionally for a very long time. Yeah, right.
Emotional constipation. It's a real thing. Emotional constipation
It
is a
and
real
a lot of
thing.
people can relate to that, right?
Yeah.
So it's the ability to allow yourself, like for me, I had a hard time just allowing myself to cry.
Yeah.
Like just the experience of crying gets you in contact with a fragility, a smallness, a crippling feeling that is not comfortable to be with.
Yeah.
Right? Like
Yeah.
it feels not only stronger and more stable to walk in strength, but it's more familiar.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
like we said, all of us from the intergenerational trauma from the slave trade, both of us from being like foreigners and coming from the mentality that your work ethic proves your worth and
Yes.
then thus makes other people, white people, take you seriously. And so there's all these things that go on to it. But I genuinely felt uncomfortable with my weaker self. I did not
Yes.
know how to sit with her. I did not know how to soothe her, how to pat her on the back, how to make space for her. And so to be able to just purge by crying, by also giving myself the grace for all the times I wasn't there for myself.
Yeah.
For all the moments where I pushed myself past my limit because A, it was the only thing that I thought that I could do, the only thing that I had access to, right? And the only thing that was rewarded and reinforced by the people around me, right? So like emotional purging is through crying, through what's called also stripping those layers of self-doubt. Criticism, but that takes time, and sometimes that takes a community or at least somebody else
Support.
to sit with to be able to do that. I'm grateful that I have you guys as like friends, as sisters, as people who have my best interest at heart. So when you guys even notice my fragility and my weakness before I even know that it's there or even I'm aware of it, you guys just sit with me and kind of modeled that experience so that I could do it with myself when I was like alone. And so
It's also accountability. I think this is what I love about our village also. I think we do hold people each other accountable.
Yes.
And I think it's also important if we're talking about self-care to have someone that's your accountability person or create a group that is your accountability.
Absolutely.
So after just thinking about like the emotional constipation, the thing that actually allowed me to go was was therapy, was meeting, my friends, allowing my friends to meet me where I was, even when I didn't feel my best. And then also giving myself grace to show up in whatever was coming up for me at the time.
Absolutely.
Grace and space.
Exactly. You guys want to get into our confession?
Let's do it.
All right.
Okay. I worked myself into the ground so hard that my body and my mind just gave out. 3 months of sick leave, 3 months of trying to remember who I am outside of exhaustion. Now I'm crawling my way back to work, but the fear is gnawing at me. What if I slip back into the same relentless cycle? What if I never actually learn how to stop? I clung to books like Burned Out by Emily and Amelia Nagoski and Rest is Resistance by Tricia Hershey, like they were life rafts, desperate to rewire my brain to believe that rest isn't something I have to earn. I'm trying, I swear I'm trying, to build into my days, to make space for myself before I disappear again. But rest still feels like rebellion. It still feels like failure. How do you all do it? How do you let yourself breathe without the crushing guilt? Because I can't go back to who I was before. I won't.
Wow. Our person that wrote in for the confession, I really like that last part around rest is still rebellion. And I think there could be some acceptance around it is, right? Like rest is perhaps a way to rebel and can be revolutionary. And should be used in that way. Like, I deserve to rest because my ancestors didn't get a chance to. And like, that just is what it is. I deserve to take up that space and like not giving into this idea that it's not okay for me to rebel. We live in a society where rebellion is appropriate for the time that we're living in. So lean into that.
Very powerful. I think I've had a similar conversation with a client because what sticks out for me is that how do you let yourself breathe without the crushing guilt? I asked my client a couple times, but I asked them, I was like, do you actually believe that resting is a bad thing? Like in your heart of hearts, in your soul, do you actually believe that you're committing a sin, a treason, an act of wrong in those moments? And there's always a pause because you start to realize I actually don't mind resting. So then you now need to kind of like flesh out, then what are the things that are shackling me or cornering me when this like experience of rest comes up? Is it what other people have told me around resting? Because I have a lot of like memories growing up. I had to wake up really early in the morning and I went to sleep really late at night. And I remember on the weekends, like if I didn't have practice or if I didn't have something, wanting to sleep in and just wanting to lay in my bed. I remember my dad being like, why are you in your bed? You're lazy. And even to this day, he is like 60-something. He's 64 years old this year. And he will say, oh, I laid down all day. I couldn't get out. I was so lazy. Mind you, he works overnight.
Right. So
Like
there's a need for some rest during the day.
Long periods of time and then has to go to doctor's appointments in the morning. So you're not sleeping and then immediately having to go to see the doctor and then not getting that much rest. But you're telling yourself that you're lazy when your body is physically telling you that you need to relax.
Rest is definitely an integral part of being a human. Like, we need rest. Like you said earlier, you can not get it and then you end up being even sicker than you possibly were before, mentally, physically, all of that. So it's definitely an integral part. I think studies show that we need like 6 to 8 hours of sleep. I think that's I can definitely work off of 6 hours of sleep. I can still be productive. And then there are those days that I need a little bit more rest because maybe I was pumping, doing a lot more the previous day or the previous week. But I think it's an integral part. And I think we have to make the time for it. Like we can put it into our routine, like plan it out if you even have to. Kind of to the reader, like I would definitely there's clearly a fear around it that he has just by some of the questions that he asks. But I think you have to put it into your routine because you'll be better for it in the future than you probably feel like it in the current moment.
Absolutely. How do we challenge this idea that rest is something that we should earn?
Well, so I want to slow it back and then I'm going to answer that real quick. I think when you are in your career or when a career has been chosen for you, or when you feel like, oh, I finally discovered my purpose, I think you tend to go in full throttle as if I don't keep up with the current, then the current is going to leave me and I'm going to miss it or I'm going to be left behind.
Right.
So I think that mentality does conflict with resting. And even with the reader and hearing it, it's like, I wonder if the job that I'm doing or the work that I'm doing doesn't fulfill me, which in turn can make me tired and give me anxiety. Because sometimes we are working to live, not working in purpose of a necessity of like, I'm also working in purpose and also understanding that work can also give to me, but I can rest from it. Because this seems like it's more like I need to survive to work. I may not desire what I'm doing. So I do think that does play a role in looking at rest. And second, around, rest, the guilt that is associated with being earned, that's a learned behavior for me that needs to be unlearned, right? Because you can't sleep until you get this done. You think about your homework. You can't go to bed until you finish your homework when you're a kid, right? Or unless the chores are done, you can't go to sleep,
Right.
or you
Or
can't do
somebody's
this, or you
literally
can't.
tearing
rest
you
of
out
there's
of
always
bed
a
to
factor
get the stuff
something.
done.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's a trade-off,
there's
a
always-
transaction.
exactly. So it's never something that's a number one option and a mandatory thing to do.
Right.
It's something that, you can do it after you
It's
do
like an
this.
option. You're correct. It comes
Yeah.
off as optional
Yeah.
versus a requirement as
required
something
of
that needs to
something to
get
do.
done, and everything else will
Yeah.
comes
It'll be
after
there.
that. You're
Yes.
correct. That starts very early in our upbringing.
I've gotten, I don't know about you guys, even in your workplace, Tiffany, I've got an influx of clients who wants to go out on FMLA and who wants to go out on leave.
I've been signing so many things.
Yes.
And me, I'm like, yes.
Yes.
You deserve it. You deserve it.
Yeah. And I think people are starting to realize that. But then when we give them that leave, the same anxiety this confessional has, going back, it's like they notice how much they will fill back up. And there's a clam and a fear of, now how do I prep you to kind of have that balance Tiffany's talking about? How can you merge rest not in just in the physical sense, but emotional rest, financial rest, and so forth and so on, knowing that you have to go back to this environment that you feel deprived you or robbed you.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that can definitely be the hard turnaround, right? Like
Yeah.
that if the environment doesn't change, how am I supposed to prioritize the things that I really need to prioritize? Well, given the current political climate, what do you think it means for Black people to accept rest as something that is radical and really necessary for us right now?
I think they're doing it, child. I like the meme where they said, while the world is burning, Black people's learning line dancing.
What is that?
So I am proud of us, and I hope it's not just a trend. It's a mentality that goes on in terms of it's both and, right? Because you're still affected with what's going on to some capacity because you know somebody who knows somebody, but also you're giving yourself a chance not to fight anymore and to really connect with yourself and what matters for however long you're here. I think we live in an era, I think for me personally, I am every day learning how to be present and focused on my spiritual faith and my spirituality for support. I feel like this time forces me to really just be and enjoy my quietness and my stillness and just be with God. Like, God, and I was like, look what's happening, Lord. This is what you said.
Yeah, no, I definitely want to add on to this idea because, like, rest being a form of rebellion, right, for Black people and for honestly, a lot of people of color. I think of the Asian community. I think of the Spanish community. They're always in doing, always in constant, because survival, it is needed. And also it is part of like their sense of worth. Yeah. Right. And I think something to think about as people are shifting into that rest is be ready for the things that you usually don't have space and time for to start showing up during these moments of rest, because that's part of the reason why people don't slow down. Work is an addiction in a form within itself. You experience the same highs and lows from work when you are wrapped up in it or fused with it, like you would if you were smoking drugs or if you were doing drinking alcohol.
It's addiction,
because there is a high that comes, and not high in terms of euphoria, but high in that I am experiencing these positive sensations, these feelings of achievement, and I'm able to escape maybe other areas where I feel inadequate. Maybe I'm not unable to have children. Maybe my household is chaotic and my husband or my wife or my boyfriend or my girlfriend or my situationship is not where I want it to be. So I'm throwing myself into work. My, life is not what I want it to be. It doesn't look like I want. I feel very unfulfilled, but at least work, I can go there, knock the hours out, escape, disassociate, and then I run it over and do it again. A lot of people are stuck in that space because if I were to stop, then I'm coming in contact with things that I am not equipped nor ready or willing to face. So that is something I think people want to look out for, that in this rebellion, there's definitely going to be a fragility that will show up with you.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I was thinking about something as you were talking, Stephanie, around what about employers? in the
Yeah.
environment they provide, right? So how, everybody has their own company and stuff in here. Like, how intentional, or what can employers actually do? Because that toxic work environment, that shit is real.
Yes.
Yeah.
And people are leaving because of that. But how do you improve productivity and also maintain and create an environment where people are not constantly rolling out or burned out?
Yeah, I think for me, just in the leadership role and just the
Yeah.
company that I work for, I make it a point amongst my team. Like, I'm checking in with them daily, weekly. Like, talk to
Exactly.
me, what's going on. Like, I'm okay if you tell me about your personal life.
Right.
Of course, it won't go past our conversation. And I think also letting them know, like, leading with the fact that your mental health is by far more important than this work that we're doing. Because I need you. The work that we're doing is important, but I need
Right.
you to show up and
Daily.
have, your mind clear and ready to think and be present. A lot of the work that we're doing is kind of like critical, and I guess we use a lot of math and
Yeah.
programming and
Yeah.
things like that. Like, I need your mind to be at a certain point. So I think for me, I just lead with mental health. What have you done for yourself lately that has, poured into your cup, like we spoke about earlier? What have you done to progress
Exactly.
yourself forward outside of your actual work life? Like, what have you
life.
done outside of this to also push yourself forward?
And when did you start doing that as a leader? Because that's what leadership, like good
Absolutely.
leadership is. Did you start to become more aware because of your own work, and then noticing, like, before, were you like, this is my expectation?
Absolutely. And I
compared
wasn't
to-
getting it. And I'm like, this
Yeah.
is the type of leader that I would want to be.
Yeah.
Because what I was lacking when I was being led by,
Nice.
certain individuals, I'm like, I want to be the type of leader that my people can come to
Yeah.
when they're having, whatever. That does, I mean, it is a heavy position to be in.
is.
But I think, we're clearly here chosen for a reason. So
Yeah.
I'm going to, fulfill my purpose in this team. And I
Yeah.
feel like that alone kind of progresses the team morale, and we're
Yeah.
able to get things done.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're technically what they call in corporate America is a high performing team, because
Yeah.
we're also taking the time for our mental well being.
There you go.
Whether it be like all of us at lunch, like, let's get up and go for a walk around the building just so that we can kind of clear our minds
Good
after
deal.
that 3-hour working session we just had.
Yeah.
So things like that. I definitely lead with that with my team.
Do you think other people within your network model that, or do you share that with other people to model
absolutely.
to improve the whole quality?
Yes, I feel like if anything, the people that I'm now bringing up behind me, they are definitely modeling that, because they're also becoming leaders in their own right, just reaching out and
Nice.
doing more things. So I do
Nice.
feel like there's, it's definitely floating around. And I also, like I said, I've seen that leadership as well. It wasn't directly with me, but I'm like, oh, if I were a leader, I wouldn't be like that person.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think it's really important, too, that I think that you do a really good job of, Tiffany, is that you model that self-care as well.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you model those boundaries, and I think that's a really important part of leadership. Like,
Yes,
people actually
boundaries.
need to see
Yes.
what that looks like. And in full transparency, I think that's probably been one of my challenges as a leader, that I don't always model the things that I really, truly
That's real,
want
though.
for the people that I support.
Yeah.
And so I think that has also kind of kicked me into gear around, like, okay, you need to make some changes, because
Yeah.
you can't be telling people to be mindful of their schedule, and
Yeah.
you
You
got,
doing the same,
you're
yeah.
stretching yourself.
Especially this week. Sorry.
You're stretching yourself. You got a lot
Yeah.
going on. And so
Yeah.
I think that is a part of the duty of leadership as well.
Yeah.
And one that I'm like excited for, and
Mm-hmm.
also very intentional about in that way.
You do.
And I think also, kind of to go back to your point about being a model, like, we're representation, whether we want it to be or not. Me,
That part.
being a Black woman in
That's
technology,
real. That's
in leadership,
real. Especially in
yes.
tech. Women in tech are slim to none.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
So I was already an example when I walked in the door, and I'm
Yeah.
like, if I'm going to be an
Deal.
example, like, let me show up properly. Let me,
Yeah.
not just lead with what I can do, but
That's
also
real.
what I'm doing in order to do the things that I'm doing.
Yeah, I
That's
like that
real.
you said whether you like it or not, right?
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes that can feel like a heavy burden to carry, especially as a Black woman, right?
Yeah,
As just like
for
real-
sure.
I don't want to be the person that is like the representation
Yeah.
of, or like I just want to be me.
Yeah.
But in reality, like, that is just where we are right now.
Yeah.
And somebody is always going to be looking to you.
And who's to say it's not you as
Yeah.
well? Like, maybe
Yeah.
that this is your purpose, to be
Yeah.
this example, so that other people
And that's
see
the point that I was
possible.
making. Exactly.
Right.
Giving people permission.
Right. And I
nice
think that
position.
all of us are in a position where we know that we have a responsibility to our
Yes.
community. And that's just what it looks like.
Yes, absolutely.
I wanted to add the part about, like, what are some ways in which that we can promote that within our various positions? Because we've all been elevated to a position of leadership, right? And I think the one thing that Judalyn J does a really great job of, like literally.
Both hands.
Always, just in case they want to know where to find her. What's it called? She does a really great job, though, of like asking straight up, how are you? I'm noticing that, you know, you're not as vocal, or I'm noticing that your demeanor has changed. You're not as, your posture is like, she's very good at just being able to kind of like observe in a non-judgmental way shifts and changes in the people that she leads. And there's a warmness to it that doesn't feel like, oh no, I've been caught up doing something I'm not supposed to be doing. And I was even curious, like Tiffany, with like your experience, right? Like, were people a bit apprehensive about opening up to you initially, being that like the environment, the vibe is not to share what's going on with you personally?
And then you're their leader.
Exactly. Honestly, I think no. I think because I was amongst them at one point. And then I was the one that, you know, moved up. So I think it was because we had already had a good rapport with each other. We had already had a connection that it was easier for them to come to me, just because, like I said, I was one of them. So once I got the leadership position, they're like, I'm going to go to her actually, because I already understand how she works.
We have that rapport.
Exactly. And we have that relationship.
So there's an important for leaders building rapport with your staff, with the people that you work with, kind of like already modeling through your language, like how important or how like you model rest. Right? Like,
but that is creating rest, right? Creating safe spaces. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tiffany. It is creating rest.
I agree.
Yeah, because that is really important for people to be able to recharge. Like that's that perhaps emotional rest that we've been talking about. So backing up a little bit, just kind of thinking about ways that we can maybe prioritize rest more. What are maybe some cultural traditions or like ancestral practices that can help us to reclaim rest?
Food. Connection. That's how, I think something that our family does well, particularly my mother, since I was a kid, is like, you know, Sunday dinners and just really, we're not really even talking about like what's going on out. We literally are catching up and just like kikiing and
being with each other.
So I don't know, there's something about going once a month. It used to be every Sunday, but going once a month that I look forward to, and even just seeing my nieces and nephew and just not caring, not doing anything. So I think that historically, I think that like finding joy and like humor, laughter has also been a way for us to rest and like kind of take a break from like the harshness that the world has perhaps put on us as Black people. I think that finding joy, engaging in things that bring you joy, being able to laugh under any circumstances. I think that from the outside looking in, it can be, you know, it can feel strange for others to, you know, be making jokes at funerals or but in reality, like that has been our way to like identify with some sort of rest or break from tragedy. Especially when there's a lot of that going on.
So,
I think when I was pondering like how to create rest or how to kind of make space for that, my mind kind of goes like multiple different ways with it, right? Like the first thing that I kind of think about, is like the intentional slowing down, but I also think about like changing scenes, changing venues. Like when I went on my trip to El Salvador, beautiful country, please go. It just being in a different culture that focuses on different things. Like making money is important, but not the only thing that keeps the community going. Family, food, being around each other, patriotism, being able to just kind of like embrace other cultures to learn more about you, being outside and just for the sake of being outside and being around other people who are outside, you know, like really that like shift in feeling like the responsibilities, the demands, this kind of like eccentric undercurrent of like having to do something about when you're somewhere else or removed from that.
Yeah.
It's like an exhale. Like it's like a nice thing. So I think that there's an importance in changing venue. And sometimes you can't go to a different country.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can't go to a different state, but you can go from your house to outside.
Yes.
You can go from outside to the library, to the park, to a museum, to the coffee house, to be with other people and other things, because cycling through that same energy over and over and over again isn't good for anybody.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, for sure.
And I would say that mine is probably a little bit more something that I do in my day to day, like a spiritual bath, like bubble bath per se. That is definitely something that I feel like I do to kind of recharge. Like we said, even sitting in silence, like I can do that. I can take a snack in there. I can take a book or whatever the case may be. And that's another way that
and
that's
like
cleansing.
Exactly.
Right?
It's very cleansing.
It's very cleansing.
And that's something that our culture has done since way before we were born into this country.
True.
Correct. Right.
That is so true.
Right. That joy, finding ways to kind of cleanse, take a pause. Traditionally, there's just so many ways that we've been able to find rest at any different level. Because recognizing that, you know, some of the ways that we are able to rest are also based in our privileges, right? So like we have been able to establish ourselves in a way that, you know, maybe we can afford to go to the spa. We can afford to perhaps take that time off, take that trip. And that may not necessarily be everybody's experience, but there are ways to find rest at every level. And I think that the basic necessities for needing to find rest is having that community, having that support. I feel like we bring that up every episode, how important community is.
Community is important.
Especially in the Black community.
It's sustainability. But we bring it up every episode because I think we, in a way, have walked away from that.
Well,
we live in an individualistic society where everyone actually fends for themselves. I've been in the workforce, and I'm sure you have too, where I am actually going to Black women to feel like we're in competition with each other.
But there's also propaganda to keep us
and that's what I was gonna say. I'm like, I don't know that it is like
purposeful.
Yeah, like it's not, or something that we have really chosen to do versus something that has been encouraged,
right? But
right?
I think the community part, we've walked away
it's broken,
from it.
yeah.
Because and it is rooted in the fact that we're forced to be in competition with each other instead of unite with each other. So I think it's slowly coming into community, but we make a big deal of it because we're not enemies or foes to each other. We all are having human experiences. And once we realize we're having human experiences with each other, then you're no longer a threat to me. You know, I'm no longer the problem for you. You know? So we are not adversary. We are like teammates.
And I like that too, because I think that the three of us work in a space where I think there's a little bit more openness to that. What is your experience working in the corporate space where there is a little bit more like, there is like a competition that is like, you want to climb the ladder or you want to get to the next step.
I'm going to say something that probably is a little different. Maybe because, I mean, I am the standard, so maybe that might be why. But I also don't work with a lot of Black women. To be completely honest. Most of my peers are white men, older men. So I've never really been in that situation where I've been forced into competition. So I think, again, in my leadership, I try to make it known that we are a community. Like, I make it feel like a community as well. So I haven't directly had to deal with that, but I can see it. I see it happening often. And I think if I were in that situation, I don't know that I would handle it the same way because clearly we are here together. We both got here by our own merit. So we need to show up for each other, especially if you're, you know, in a position that I'm trying to get to even. Like I can think about like partners at my company and like, how do I get to where you are? And they're pretty open, I will say. But I haven't directly had to deal with that.
I actually have a question though, because of your unique position, right, in being in leadership and also being around what we would say is the majority, right, the privileged majority of white men. How do they show up in response to rest?
Honestly, I don't know that they actually lead directly with, they're doing any type of self-care. People riding bikes or going running, like they don't truly lead with that until you get like super personable with it.
Yeah.
And I feel like over time that has come up for me, but I wouldn't say that I learned that type of leadership from a male. It was definitely from a woman that I've learned the part about rest and being in leadership, because these are women that have, they have a family at home or they're currently pregnant and they're leading a team of like 50 people and they're like planning for their transition away from this, like things like that. So that's how I would.
Yeah.
So, but also, I guess another thing I think about then is because they don't lead with that, and even the stuff of like running and biking are more praised like activities that are more like
there's an
sport.
award.
You're right.
Yeah.
There's a thing, and there's almost like a
Competitive.
brag about it. Oh, I biked for this amount of miles. I did this, which then breeds competition.
Yeah.
Right. But my, I guess, question is around how, when you say you want to rest or that you are going to take the time off, there is this underlying stereotype that Black women are more able and more
they don't need
capable
it.
to take on stress, drama, problems, and do not require rest. So I'm just interested to see how that shows up in your sector of the world.
I definitely do feel like, I think directly because of my leadership, there are times that I'm like, I really hate to take off, but I need this time. I think I definitely grew into that over time, because sometimes before I'd be like, I'm actually not going to take off because I want, to continue to be in their good graces and being the one to show up and do all the work.
Was that a spoken thing though, Tiff, or was it more unspoken? That
it was definitely unspoken.
Yeah.
Definitely unspoken. Not spoken about at all. So definitely unspoken. And I think over time, like I said, it just became something that I had to do.
Yeah.
Because once I became more important at work, like I'm like, oh, okay, like I could be doing some of this stuff for myself. That's when all of my creative things. So it was really more so me making time for that.
Yeah.
And I had to do that because those are the things that are filling me up in order to show up here.
Yeah.
And I think that's how it all just aligned for me over time.
Yeah. I'm hearing a lot of self-advocacy there too. Like just knowing that I have to be the one to say and set that boundary or it won't happen.
It won't happen. Absolutely. Because no one was there to advocate for me.
Right.
And that's something that I've actually dealt with recently at work, is just self-advocation. Like if I'm not the one advocating, no one else is going to speak on my behalf. So I have to be the one to
repeat
do
that.
That part.
Okay, that's self-advocacy.
No one else. No one else
will
speak.
do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So would you guys agree? Would you agree then, maybe in the beginning, that there may need to be some sort of self-sacrifice or sacrifice?
I do
Sure.
believe there's sacrifice.
Because that's
when
what
it
I'm
comes to
also
rest.
hearing is that you
Absolutely.
had to sacrifice in
Yeah.
the beginning, and then when you got to a position or a place where you realize, actually, I don't.
Yeah.
Then is that when the self-advocacy kind of
I
kicked
think
in?
so. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
definitely sacrifice involved in any type of rest, because you're, like you said earlier, you feel like you're missing out on something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's the point that I was making earlier too, around how sometimes we can live on extremes, right? Like now that we're having more conversations about rest and that being a resistance, and you should have your boundaries and not let the job overwork you. Motherfuckers be coming to work not wanting to work.
Yes. Yes.
We gotta meet ourselves in the middle, right? Like there is gonna be some sacrifice, and there is also a need to like recognize when I can observe my limits and when I can stretch them. You are not meant to stretch your limits all the time. You are not meant to observe your limits all the time either.
Yes.
Absolutely.
You have to be able to stretch in order to
You
grow.
have to find the balance.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
I kind of wanted to circle back to a couple points that we had made earlier. One thing I want you guys to think about is, why do they not want Black people to rest? First question. I want you to really, really think about that, right? Why don't they want us to rest?
You want the
You tell me
nice one.
that's the first thing. The second thing is back to
dirty.
Jay, what you said about how when we are around our people, our kinfolk, there are times a crab in the barrel mentality. And I also want to talk a little
All
bit
my
about
life, I had to deal with that.
right. No, but I also want to talk a little bit about why that also shows up between the older generation of Black women. Because I remember, we watched this video, Jay, you and I, before we started recording today, about like the slave mentality and the different ways in which it kind of like shows up and warps the things that we feel like we need and we want to do.
Yeah.
So if you think about it, let's go back, what is it now, 450 years back into slavery? Okay. you and I are at the job, aka we're dark skinned, so we'd be out in the field. Okay, so you and I are out in the field.
I can't last that long. They would have killed me.
Yeah, like,
Right. Correct. My bad. But I'm looking at Jay.
You know the shades
I'm
really
just saying
matter.
it's real different. We would be
This shade was
out
not
in
me.
the
But I
whatever.
wouldn't have made it to the slave ship, though. I told you.
Okay.
Yeah, I would have
Let's
chosen
hypothetically
I'm not even gonna
say I
lie.
made
Pretend
it.
that you weren't one of
We
the
made it.
original slaves. You
We
would have
made
bred
it.
over
Let's
here in the
say I
U.S.
made it.
Okay.
Okay.
So you and I are on the plantation, and I, come to you and I'd be like, Jay, I'm tired AF, bro. I can't pick no more cotton. I've been picked up several barrels. My back hurts. I can't rest. What will you say to me as my fellow friend Ken on said plantation?
You better keep picking or you're gonna die.
Jay, but I'm so tired.
And they don't care. Keep picking.
Right.
Or you die.
And mind you, if
And
I
then
did
I'm
not
picking more and I'm putting myself out. So then the master sees me, but she's the lazy one, though she's overpicked.
I've overpicked. I've done more of my job and I'm tired. If I stop working, not only does that affect me, but now Jay is about to be reprimanded. They will potentially would beat Jay.
Yeah.
Would beat all the slaves because I was not decided that I needed to rest.
Yeah.
Or so not decided, I needed to rest.
Yeah.
But they could not allow me to do so. So what is the psychological thing that is now ingrained? When someone else is slowly falling short, I can't let them.
It's my responsibility.
I have to. No, you need to
I'll be
hurry up.
punished
You can't
for
do
it.
that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because they're going to make us look bad. Us, the collective, not just this individual
I think
person.
that also kind of fuels that idea that like one of us represents all of us too, right?
Yeah.
Like that there is like that if you do something, then the other people are going to be punished. I think your first question was what was the first question?
The first question was, why don't they want Black people to rest?
The radicalized version for me
Go ahead.
is that
This shit is open flames.
our productivity or like the need for us to labor keeps us away from critical thinking. They don't want to be thinking.
So can you say it for those of us who aren't really up to date on what, the history of the stuff? What does that mean?
What does it mean for us to critically think?
Yeah, why don't they want us to critically think? They don't want us to have the energy to be able to make decisions and choices for ourselves.
Or to make choices to kind of get us out of the space that we've been in. And to be honest, like I think that systemically, America has done what it's supposed to do as far as keeping us oppressed, for sure. I think that I think that every day I learn a way how this shit is seeping into our lives. Like it's a new way of how like supremacy has, taken charge and like done what it was meant to do.
Yeah.
So I think that a big part of us not thinking of this conversation around education, around like why we're not going to school or why Black men aren't going to school and like all of this shit is based in like, we don't want you all to think about how you cannot be in this situation.
But what do they do push though? Oh, you guys need to work. They need to, they're not, the youth aren't doing enough. They're just running and lollygagging. They're all lazy. Interesting though, because those are critical years where you learn how to identify problems, assess how to move, and then implement. But you want people to immediately go into producing and not having to create that critical part of you in order to make informed decisions.
Yeah,
No, for sure.
Much of that is like based in capitalism.
Absolutely.
It's money based. Like
And
we
we
can
talked
get
about that
rich.
earlier
The
episode.
biggest part of slavery was not just like, oh, we don't want to work. We want somebody else to do it. It was made motherfuckers
Money,
rich.
money.
Yes.
It made us rich. So
Yes.
it's all based on like how we can like profit.
So Black
off of
people,
someone else.
they don't want Black people to rest because then they would lose money.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Because everything, for the most
They go in
part,
flames.
has always been built through the work that we've put in, either through labor, either through testing that we didn't know about.
Yeah.
Like, so if we do not work, then we are not easily controlled.
Sure.
That's why that's why I'm really curious to see how they're gonna do some of these jobs that these immigrants used to do. I'm really curious to see how we're gonna function as a country when we take some of the people who's willing to do the work that nobody else is willing to do.
AI can't do that.
And I'm actually interested in, I love how these other countries are now they're forced to actually pour back into their own country and their own people to build a stronger nation for themselves because America has rejected them. That's why I think is interesting.
So yeah, you speak in a lot of different things, and the fact that one, we're not the only Black people, Caribbean, African people are not the only ones that have been both villainized for work and also not allowed to work. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I think that, like, excuse me, are not allowed to rest. And I think that when we talk about rest being a rebellion, it's both in the mental space, it's both in the political space, it's both in the human, like just as human beings, the ability to take the step back and just pour into me and my community and not pour into big corporations.
Exactly.
That is something that has really shaken the table because for a very, very long time, it was all about community was masked with corporation. Like it was like, oh, how are you? What are you doing for your community? No, it's what are you doing for the corporations and these bigger entities that are controlling us? And we're now being forced to tap back into the individual, into the human community.
I agree.
All right. So this was a good conversation.
It was very good.
Yes.
Tiffany, did
Maybe
you
there's
want to
a part
have
two.
you all right? That part. Did you have any
say.
final lab before we get into the listener's letter? Any final point
I would
that
just
you
say
wanted to
just
make?
continuing to, make sure you're doing those things to persevere, but also preserve yourself in order to,
That's major.
do what you need to do for you and for your purpose on this earth. We all have a
Preservation
purpose.
is what I'm hearing.
Absolutely.
All right.
you.
Let's
So
get into
the
our
listener's
listener letter.
All right. I, 28-year-old female, have been married to my husband, 28-year-old male, for just over a year. He's the best man I've ever met, kind, respectful, and hardworking. I have BPD, which is borderline personality disorder, and autism, and my dating history is full of emotional, physical, and sexual abuse. So healthy relationships are new to me. Recently, I started a bar job and hit it off with a coworker who clearly is into me. I've tried to friend zone him, but avoiding him isn't an option since he's a seniority. My husband got uncomfortable, went through my messages, and found nothing inappropriate, just usual emojis. I apologize for making him feel uneasy, but I'm still unsettled. We've also had a rough patch where he kept forgetting to be intimate with me, shutting down my advances for weeks. After my past, this triggered deep insecurities. I'm trying to heal, set boundaries, and understand myself after my autism diagnosis, but this situation is making me question things. How do you navigate trust, personal growth, and boundaries in a relationship while recovering from past trauma?
Interesting. I heard a lot of different points with our listener letter. One being around like some things that can come with the diagnosis of BPD or autism, right? Both experiences of some sort of like neurodivergence.
Yeah, for sure.
There can be very high rejection sensitivity that comes with that experience, right? So outside of this person's trauma, their partner not making time or intentional time for intimacy, shutting down those advances. For the partner, it's maybe just like, I'm tired this week, or like, I'm just not into it. For the person that is experiencing that with the BPD or the autism, it feels like
Total rejection.
Yeah, like
I'm
complete rejection. Like this person does not want me, does not like me, does not desire me.
Something is wrong with me.
Something's wrong with me. It can be a very internalized experience, and I think that a lot of people don't understand that about the aspect of being neurodivergent. That can really make it hard for the person to even be skillful because of that. Like, I feel rejected all the time.
Yeah.
And can we also talk about pattern recognition?
Yeah.
That is really
noticed that
important
shift.
in both of like, regardless of if the diagnosis is true to what you're, experiencing, the BPD and the autism. If I'm used to you showing up in these ways with me for weeks, months, years, and then all of a sudden there is a shift in how you show up, I'm going to be aware of that, even though it's something subtle. And it could have started
even
way
if it's not
before.
about me.
Right. It could have started way before you forgot we had sex. Things have been feeling a little stale because there is a lull that happens in relationships. I don't know if they talked about how long they have been dating or have been together
for
over a year.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be around a time where the initial honeymoon period or experience
the novelty of it all
is now starting to kind of be replaced with normalcy, which looks very very balanced, very kind of stagnant a little bit, right? I also wanted to talk about the impact of the trauma, like in the abuse. There's been both emotional, physical, and sexual abuse in their past history. I don't know if it's off of a singular partner or if it's multiple partners and different traumas are experienced, but there is an underlying, I guess, mistrust in self and in the other person. Right? How did I not get ahead of this? How did I not catch this? How did I allow myself to continue to be mistreated and mishandled in this way, right? One partner, let alone 2, 3, 4, 5 partners. So this person could be starting to see this healthy relationship, and healthy is something that we can put in quotations, as just unfamiliar. I don't really know what to do with a person who isn't putting me through the highs and lows.
And that uncertainty can feel like a threat.
Exactly. And then now I'm I almost create a problem or a chaos or some type of erraticness in the relationship because that makes more sense to me.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. What do you guys think about the boundaries with the
That's what I'm going to ask Tiffany. So what do you think about, how do you navigate trust, personal growth, and boundaries in a relationship? That you're still healing from past things. So what do you think about that?
I think kind of what I've been saying this whole time, you have to almost kind of take yourself out of it and do the things that you need for yourself. This person and the reader or the listener in particular that wrote in the letter, I think they almost have to lead with the boundaries that they need for themselves, because if all the other past traumas, they're literally holding on their shoulders. Everything they're doing, they're thinking about their past traumas, but you're going to have to I'm sure that's probably a better question for you guys too, because it's literally what you do is talking people through that kind of stuff, but you can't carry it with you in everything you do. It can't continue to trigger you and reminding you of the things. So I think those boundaries is definitely going to be the biggest thing. And that's the only way. Without the boundaries, there's no personal growth. So it's literally like a domino effect. Once you have the one thing, the other things will definitely come.
I agree with that, right? And I think that the challenge perhaps with it almost feels like the relationship with the coworker is
a safeguard,
dipping my toe in. I'm kind of keeping the window cracked a little bit. With not necessarily setting a firm boundary initially. Maybe the conversations aren't inappropriate, but what is the level of access that this person has to you to even make them feel you can be into me as a married woman and communicate with me in the manner that you can. So I think I kind of I sometimes look at leaving the window cracked to somebody that is into you as what is it that you feel like you're gaining from having this connection with this person, knowing that the power dynamic is perhaps off.
I'd have to disagree, to be honest, because she's done a lot. She literally told him that she was not interested by friend zoning him. She cannot avoid him because of the hierarchy, because she is her boss. So to some degree, if she were to create further separation, it would affect
the job,
whatever that she is doing. Now, yes, you might have something about the communicating, but mind you, the emojis that she is sending for someone that I know that's on that is the limited amount of conversation she's not sending him text messages and full things. She's sending an emoji as a thing to hey, then this might be me assuming thumbs up, smiley face at this, and that be the end of it. And there are moments where you cannot do more than what it is that she is doing. If somebody else wants to be in you, trust and believe I've been here. If somebody else wants to be in you and you're not giving them nothing, they will just continue
The behavior gets louder.
They will just do what it is they want to do. So to some degree, I don't necessarily think that she's leaving the window open for anything as much as circumstances are presenting themselves in a way where this is happening at the same time as me having these rough patches with my husband.
Yeah.
Because what I found interesting in here, which might be worth having maybe more of like a couples therapy thing, she's made several attempts at connection with him for weeks.
Yeah.
And he did not respond.
And each of those instances, it's very clear that this person does not have the capacity to look at each of these instances as a separate experience. It very much seems like it's like a pile on. Like, you rejected me 2 weeks ago, then you rejected me again. So that's
And then
like,
you look at my messages.
Isn't that part sometimes that's symptomatic,
Yes.
right? Because what I also want to point out, to the point that you're making, is that the question is, how do I set boundaries, build trust, and navigate growth? The boss that's hitting on me in my husband is triggering my trauma.
Exactly. Yep.
Yes.
So because those two entities are triggering my trauma, there's also the part of the boss, because I'm missing this thing from my husband that's also
That is
feeding
open-
my insecurity and
Right.
my spirit.
Right.
So as much as he's triggering me with the advancement and not respecting my autonomy or space, me saying no, it's
He's
also
feeling that
I can
rejection.
welcome it either, because at least you want, in my mind, at least you desire me. And the person in the beginning, because autism is consistency, right? BPD is consistency in terms of emotion, what you're doing. So my husband used to dote over me and create this space of wanting and desiring for me, to now life is lifing to us, to Tyler's point. From the husband's perspective, I'm just trying to maintain and do things and not being able to read my social cues and questioning, am I really giving social cues?
Right.
Am I really expressing myself? So am I advancement, or looking at advancement, or advancement being playful? So my suggestion is around maybe having an honest conversation with the person that you actually do trust, which is your husband. And you could use the help of a therapist if you don't already have one to
Right.
navigate this.
Yeah.
But having a conversation, babe, this is what my mind,
It's
because
telling
what
me.
I tell my clients who have this type of diagnosis, like, sometimes it is saying, this is what my mind is saying, and I just want to make sure that it's my mind saying that that's not what you're saying.
Right.
Yeah.
I need to know your intention.
Because the thing
Yeah.
about it is, we may look at, they're perceiving the husband, the ongoing advancements as rejection, and he may not be fully aware he's rejected, to Tyler's point. So if I come to you and said, babe, I'm going to be real with you, because quickly like, oh my God, I did something wrong, let me apologize, let me make for it, because he read the messages, when really she didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
She still respected her marriage.
Right.
But it's around, I wonder if she had taken it deeper, and I'm encouraging you to take it deeper, around saying, okay, this is what I've been feeling, this is what I've been noticed, and this is what's happening to me. I don't expect you to do anything about it. I just want you to, one, give me perspective
aware.
from your standpoint, and also working with a therapist to kind of really like, okay, this is what he said is really happening. This is how I perceive what is said. And this is what's showing up with me with these interactions.
Right.
That's
So,
good.
Yeah, and I think I read in here that she just, I think the autism diagnosis is newer.
Recent.
it's new.
Yep.
So there's
Right.
some acceptance around
Yeah,
that,
there's
right?
definitely
there's
a lot of that.
acceptance that needs to happen.
From
that I
her
think-
and the partner too.
Yes.
Because I think
Yeah.
that a lot of the autism like treatment focus is not only in giving the person skills, but it's also in the support system and the environment kind of shifting the ways in which they approach certain things like conflict.
Yeah.
Because the
sure.
husband is also engaging in behaviors that the wife can like interpret as punishing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And as what's it called, distancing.
Yeah. Mhm.
And so that might be something that would be less hurtful with somebody who's like not neurotypical.
Right.
But for someone whose mind kind of like takes things to the extreme because my system has been triggered in an extreme ways.
For sure.
that is definitely going to be something we have to curate and talk a little bit more about how to address as a unit, not only just like you need to identify this and you need to see this. And I loved, Jay, that what you brought up, the fact is that she's being triggered because this piece of an entity beyond my like trusted people is trying to infiltrate my experience, and that is triggering the abuse stuff of like my rights aren't being respected. They're not being, it's being challenged, it's being pressed upon me, and that's gonna feel like a withering experience, a feeling of like you're being
control
cornered.
is taken away. Exactly. This was a nice conversation.
So
okay, so Tiffany, where can the people find you? And what do you got going on?
Yes, so I think in my intro we spoke about aspiring writers. So I'm currently in the process of writing a book. You will be able to find all that information on my website, creativetechie.com. All information about me, even booking me for my services, because a lot of the work that I do for small businesses, also podcasts like you guys.
We appreciate you.
And supporting them with my cloud engineering, AI, and cybersecurity skills. So thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us. If you all would like to have your letters read on the show or to write in to us about topics that you want us to cover, we can be found at couchchroniclestad@gmail.com. See you next time.
And then we'll put Tiffany's information for you too.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.